Hey everybody, welcome to the Geek Generation. I'm your host, Rob Logan, joined in the studio once again by Paul O.
Hello.
Hello. We have a lot to talk about this week, as we do all the time. We've been saving up some geek outs and freak outs for you. We got some things to review, and we're going to jump in with our geek outs right now.
Yay!
Hello. The Division.
Okay.
Beta. I have a list. I can do this for you.
Okay, great. You can remind me.
Yes.
So the Division beta has been out. By the time you hear this, it might be gone. But it's out on Xbox One. It's a lot of what they promised, but it's very limited. So, of course, because it's a beta.
Sure.
I will say that it is fun. It has like those sort of RPG elements to it, collecting loot, developing skills, so on and so forth. The shooting is kind of reminiscent of Gears of War. It's third person,
a lot of cover,
taking cover, but it's a little bit more strategy based. It's definitely overwhelming playing as like a single player.
Okay,
because sometimes you run into enemies and it's very deceptive. Like it's kind of like World of Warcraft or any of like the bigger MMOs where like you can discern, okay, this enemy has this type of color scheme associated with their health bar. So this is like a minor enemy. This is a major enemy. This is an ultra enemy. But in the Division, it's like there's two, I think.
Oh, geez.
There's normal and then there's like the elite characters.
Sure.
And like in the beginning, I was having a problem sorting that out. And I was like I was going up against enemies. I was like, really far outside of my skill level, even though the numbers were corresponding, like matching. But I mean, it just takes getting some used to. Of course, it's the beta, but it's definitely my anxiety level playing this game is very high because if you remember from how the Division was described before, there is an element in which you can sort of backstab your teammates.
Yes,
it's called like going rogue.
Okay.
The rogue. Like once you go rogue on your team, it marks you on the map as saying that you're a rogue agent.
Oh,
and so because
there's a consequence to it,
right? Like the whole concept of the game is that you're kind of all working for this one organization.
Okay,
and so going rogue is kind of turning against the people in your group, which you are able to do in sort of like cooperative formats. And it's kind of in an effort to like take their loot, or if you see somebody, maybe that you don't like, you team up with them and then you kind of backstab them.
Sure.
But it does raise your anxiety level because there is so every time you collect loot, you are in danger of losing it if somebody kills you or if you are killed on the field of battle. And so you can call in for an extraction, which is like setting up a beacon and having a helicopter come in and like take your stuff back to home base. And so, but that's a 45-second or a minute.
It feels
period.
like, what was it? Weakest Link, where you banked your money as you were going through as the team.
Basically.
Yeah.
And so there is that anxiety for that 45 seconds or a minute where you're waiting for the extraction to come.
Yeah.
And like other people can use your extraction too. So like people can like on your team can use your extraction to take their loot back to home base.
Sure.
But I mean, as you can probably imagine, that's like setting up a giant like clusterfuck. Like, I mean, people could say like, okay, I'm going to backstab everyone on my team right now and take everybody's loot because
when everyone's going to the extraction,
right? Yeah, because extractions are basically like beacons for other people who are like chronic rogue agents to say like, oh, well, these people are obviously like, like lifting loot out of here. Maybe I could just, be more efficient with my time and just take their loot instead of trying to kill all these.
If you're marked as a rogue agent, are you marked as a rogue agent to everybody or just the ones that you backstabbed?
I think
because I would think doing it once, you're just marked and then
you're marked. I think you're marked for a period of time. Like I only did it once. Yeah. Because I was just like, I need to see what this is like. Yeah. Because this is a new mechanic to me. And so I only did it once and I failed.
You're a horrible rogue agent.
Like I backstabbed this guy and I tried to take his stuff and then he killed me. So it's like it builds so much anxiety because for that time period you're always thinking like, can I trust the people on this team? And presumably you're going to be playing this game with people that you like, like your friends online.
Right.
So, like, I mean, I've already talked to, like, a couple of my friends and be like, listen, we're going to have to, like, sign contracts before we start playing because...
It's like a more involved version of the Resistance.
Kind of, yeah. Like, it's like you... Like, that's part of the fun of the game too,
You're
like
right.
the excitement level, because it does build that anxiety. But I mean, friendships can be ruined,
Sure.
and I anticipate that they will be in a situation like this. So I'm both excited but also concerned for my relationships. But I'm definitely geeking out about it because it's fun. It's a shooter that is definitely unique. It's a little bit more like it's post-apocalyptic, but you also have resources.
Okay.
So you feel sort of like in the wild, wild west, except in this case, you're in Manhattan during the winter. But like the type of character that I play has like these seeking bombs. Like he puts them down on the ground, and you can send them out from behind cover, and they roll out to wherever the enemy is and blows up.
Nice.
There's going to be other classes too. Like there's a healer class, I think, and there's one that you can play remotely, like on a tablet. I wasn't paying too much attention to.
Oh, I remember seeing stuff in the video. Like there's almost a drone that you can control via a tablet, like a second screen. Yeah.
So I'm excited for the game, but I am also concerned for my relationships.
Yeah.
My second geek out. My apologies in advance because some of my geek outs today are going to be sort of sports related.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, what's happening?
But believe me when I say that they are sort of tied to media and the things that we consume.
Okay.
And I mean, they are like, for example, okay, so my second geek out is Katie Nolan. She does a show on Fox Sports 1 called Garbage Time with Katie Nolan. A lot of her content is on YouTube as well, so you can watch her stuff there.
I did watch a quick highlight reel of like her chemistry seeking like for a co-host type thing. It was like the intro video for the channel. Yeah.
So, I mean, and she has guests come on her show that are, sort of in the realm of, the things that, the things that geeks like to watch.
Michael B. Jordan, I saw. Terry Crews, I saw.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's some tie-in there. She's very much a versatile host in that she can be funny, but if there is a serious issue to be raised, she can address it, and she does it quite well.
Okay.
And, her source material is full of it. Because she covers sports,
right?
And for example, I mean, I think one of her breakout videos for me was when she handled the Greg Hardy situation. For those not familiar, Greg Hardy is a player for the Dallas Cowboys who is quite talented, but also very problematic. He has a history with domestic violence.
So when you say for people that aren't familiar, you're talking to me.
Well, I mean, like, some people aren't even like sports fans.
Oh yeah, I have no idea who it is.
Familiar with football, but she dealt with the issue so well. Like, very much in like the vein of like Jon Stewart, able to be very funny, but at the same time, if a serious issue arises, she can address it and you are sucked in immediately.
Okay.
So, I mean, I suggest if you're a fan of Katie Nolan or if you're, a fan of football or sports in general, that you follow her on YouTube or on Twitter. She's very funny, but she's also very like evocative of that sort of Jon Stewart, comedic yet serious side. I don't know how to exactly put it, but
sure.
Definitely give her a look. I'm going to jump around a little bit on the list because the third geek out is sort of tied to sports as well. It's the Jonah Carey podcast on Nerdist Network. For those who aren't familiar, Jonah Carey, former Grantland writer, worked at ESPN, currently at the MLB Network, has been a guest on the Nerdist podcast before.
I've probably heard him at some point.
He's very into like the numbers side of sports, like a statistician sort of thing.
Okay, sure, I remember that.
Yeah, he wrote a book and he went on the Nerdist podcast and did a show. So he's had a podcast that is very sports related, but also tied to like media and journalism. But he only recently moved it over to the Nerdist Network. His first guest was Chris Hardwick, and they sort of addressed why Chris Hardwick is having a sports podcast on his network. Because as a lot of people who are familiar with Chris Hardwick know,
he likes to make the sports ball joke.
Right. Yeah. He's very much opposed to sports. Like he grew up a nerd and like, every time he shits on sports, people are like, why do you shit on sports? And his sort of response is like, well, it's like the one time I'm doing it as opposed to like the million times I have to hear about football / baseball / hockey or whatever. So it was strange for him to then bring on somebody like Jonah Carey, who talks almost exclusively about sports. And he kind of explains it and is like, well, it kind of opened my eyes to this like other side of sports that we can explore through, Jonah Carey, who is a journalist first. Not necessarily all about sports, even though, a lot of his journalistic content does come from it. But I think he does it in a way that's more entertaining. His second guest, which I was just listening to on the way over here, was Keith Olbermann. Okay. Who I think you're familiar with.
I've heard the name.
Yeah. He's been on you name it network. He's been on it. He's been on ESPN, Fox, MSNBC. He's currently, sort of off air in a hiatus period, but I think he's going to be moving to like another network soon. Very distinctive voice. If you grew up in the 90s and you watched anything related to like the Monica Lewinsky scandal, he was covering it basically. Okay. And very interesting show. Talks a lot about like sports journalism in general. They even get into like a little bit of politics and humor. So I would give it a shot, because if you're not a sports fan, but you maybe want to dip your toe into it to see what it's all about, the Jonah Carey podcast might be a good jumping off point. You can also probably find some of his older stuff online too. So definitely geeking out about that. The third geek out is Top Gear related. So Top Gear, British Top Gear show that's been on forever. I think it's like while it was on in its original format, it was the number one show in the world. I think it had like unreal numbers, like millions, like across the entire world. Everybody knows who these people are. Jeremy Clarkson, James May, Hammond. Like the show is almost like ubiquitous with like automotive television. Okay. Like, Top Gear if like, even if you don't like cars, they do.
I've heard of Top Gear, but I've never seen it or heard of any of the hosts.
Like, well, okay. But I mean, Top Gear, like their central focus is cars, but they also do fun things with cars. Okay. Like they've done things where they've tried to launch a 3-wheel car into space using actual rocket technology. Okay. And they almost made it. Wow. They always do the hypothetical race between a car and a insert vehicle here. Okay. Like they often do it with like boats, trains, public transportation, skiers. They do a lot of like crazy shit because they have the budget from the BBC that they can just blow it out of the water. But recently, one of the hosts, Jeremy Clarkson, was fired from the show for punching a producer, I think, on the show. Geez. It was just out of frustration and sort of like I don't have to take this from you anymore. And so he was fired from the show. And then shortly thereafter, the other two show hosts resigned as a sign of like sort of brotherhood and camaraderie. Sure. And now they have their own show on Amazon, which is going to be streaming through Amazon Prime. And so Top Gear, the BBC has been struggling to like put together another show or another group of hosts to host Top Gear, because it's kind of like it's still such a popular show that they don't want to give it up. Okay. And so they only recently announced that Matt LeBlanc,
I saw that, yeah,
Joey from Friends, is going to be one of the hosts for Top Gear, the original incarnation of Top Gear. Now, this can be problematic if you only think of Matt LeBlanc as
Joey from Friends. Sure.
But, it's come out in recent weeks that Matt LeBlanc is a very big gearhead. He's very into cars and motorcycles. I guess I didn't even know this before, but he was an amateur grand touring driver, which is like a form of racing. Okay. He's very much into like the automotive scene. And so it's promising because, he's done work with British properties before. He was in the American adaptation of Episodes, which was like a sort of comedic drama show that aired on HBO, but also previously on the BBC. So he has that tie-in. I don't know what his chemistry is going to be like with the other hosts, because I don't really know who the other hosts are. The first one that they announced was Chris Evans.
I saw that too, and I was like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah. The first time I saw that, I was like, "What? Captain America's going to be on Top Gear? That's going to be awesome!" But it turns out it's another guy. Who's very much not Captain America.
He's Captain BBC.
He's very much like Lieutenant BBC.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are criticizing it because, I mean, Top Gear UK was so it ran for so long in its original form. It's almost unheard of. Like it's been going almost, I think The Simpsons has only been going like three years longer or something. Like it's something ridiculous. Like that kind of TV show doesn't exist anymore. And so many people have so many like dear memories tied to the show that they don't want to see like a new incarnation of it. I'm of the camp, let's give it a chance. These are people who have a passion for cars and for automotive stuff. Let's give them a shot. The creative people I think they're all still in place.
Okay.
It's just the hosts that have left. And so maybe we give it a shot. If it sucks, oh well. But I'm excited. And Matt LeBlanc was good. I'm waiting for him to tie in the Porsche joke.
Oh yeah.
The show. It's a Porsche. And my last geek out is I've talked about it before, the Viceland channel that's going to be tied. It's going to be on cable TV. It's under the A&E umbrella. And they recently released a trailer for the Action Bronson led show Fuck That's Delicious.
Okay.
Action Bronson is a rapper and former chef. I think he worked in kitchens for a long time before discovering his talent for rapping. And he's currently like one of the biggest touring acts around the world. Like he sells out easily. Like he's very big.
Okay.
And he's also very physically big, which is kind of but he's like, the show is just I watched it on YouTube as long as it's been on, and it's like it's so strange for somebody to see somebody like him have like this passion for food and also be able to put it out there in a way that makes you care about it too. Like he'll be eating goat in the middle of the desert, and that's not something that's necessarily appealing to me, but the way that he eats and the way that he just talks about it and the way that the show is put out makes me want to eat goat in the desert.
That's so weird.
And it's so weird, but it's his passion for food and for hip hop is just, it's infectious to me at least. And so I'm excited to see him on like a 30-minute format for TV because he's been on YouTube for so long. And I'm excited to see where he goes. He takes like a couple of his friends along as well as his DJ. I think they just film it while he's on tour. Okay. So like everywhere he goes on tour is like a stop that they have on the show.
Might as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else are you doing?
I'm excited because I'm a fan of his work. So
cool.
That's it for me though.
All right. My first geek out is let's stick on the food topic by talking about the movie Burnt. This was Bradley Cooper's movie that came out a few months ago. I had a lot of kind of flashbacks to Chef when I was seeing the trailers and stuff, and I loved that movie. Yeah, that was fantastic. I don't know what it is about cooking movies or like these like high stakes chef kitchen things that I really enjoy. You would think I would watch something like Gordon Ramsay, but I find that kind of delivery to be assholish. So I can't sit through that stuff. But to see like the character of a chef who's like that specialized and that good at it, and to watch them in the kitchen and to kind of appreciate the pressure of the kitchen environment. Granted, it's never one that I'd want to be a part of, like that whole scene. I think that kind of a scene, that kind of like military approach to stuff is not effective, even though that's the norm for that world. I've never thought that that's like a good environment to be a part of as a human being.
Well, I think that's largely tradition more.
Exactly. But things need to change in time. But that being said, the performances were awesome. I really, really enjoyed the movie. Bradley Cooper is obviously very good in it. It's not all about cooking. It's about ultimately a person's desire to be something more than themselves, to be something great. And then there's always the struggle of professionalism and your job and career versus your personal life, where he's sacrificed pretty much his entire personal life to be this master of anything, in this case cooking, but really anything. And it's a theme we've seen in movies over and over again, but to see it in this world through this lens is something different. And I thought it was done very, very well. So highly recommend that people watch Burnt.
It kind of reminded me a little, like I didn't see the movie, but I saw the trailers. Like it reminded me sort of like a movie adaptation of like No Reservations, like the Anthony Bourdain book that he put out.
Yep.
Sort of, not really, but yeah, like it's that whole idea of sacrificing everything, or not everything, but sacrificing things that are important to your life in an effort to become better at the thing that's most important to you. It's
Sure,
like that
sure.
sort of balancing act.
It's about what's finding out what is important
Yeah.
through experimentation. Like if you're so tunnel vision on one thing, you don't even leave the option that maybe something else might be more important to you.
Yeah. And that was Bradley Cooper and Sienna Miller, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. First, they were good in American Sniper. I just saw that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know I'm like super far behind, but it's on demand right now. So
Yeah.
I saw that recently. They were good together. So
Yeah.
it's awesome.
My next geek out is Windows 10. Holy crap, I'm geeking out over a Windows operating system. It's been a while.
Tell me more.
Have you not made the upgrade?
I'm going to make a shocking admission on a geek related TV show.
Uh-oh.
But my current desktop, which is basically just.
Are you going to say XP?
I'm going to. Pretty close. I'm still on Vista with the computer. So,
ouch.
And like recently I've been getting like notifications through like different programs.
Yeah.
We will no longer be supporting XP and Vista. I'm like, I turned to my wife and I'm like, we need to upgrade this computer. Otherwise it's going away soon.
Yeah.
But what's your geek out with Windows 10?
It's good.
Okay.
I always get worried because whenever you change operating systems, I mean, it is the structure, it's the skeleton of your system. Like everything else is built upon it. So I had a few fears. I had the fear that my hardware wouldn't be supported. I had the fear that some of those like third party kind of smaller programs that I use would not work anymore. The things that I need. So maybe I could find alternatives, but it's going to take a while. There's always a research and a growing period. I also get afraid that the kind of systems that I'm used to, I'm going to have a hard time navigating and learning where the new things are and anything like that. And the nightmare that Windows 8 was. I mean, I heard nothing but bad things about that. I don't even want to start talking about Windows 9 because it's just non-existent. So that still befuddles me. Like, how do you make that like 7, 8, 10? I mean, their inability to count gave me little confidence in their products. But I did make the upgrade. I had gotten a solid state drive for Christmas.
Oh, okay.
So I replaced that. I put that into my computer, made it kind of my main hard drive, and made my other one as my like media holder. So all my programs and stuff are on 10. I was like, if I'm going to do an experiment and find out if I want Windows 10, this is kind of the right time to do it. I want to do a fresh install of everything anyway, just kind of clean out the junk, because you should do that every few years. So you install it. The installation was pretty easy. I don't recommend doing it through the software, like a download. They do allow you to go to a website where you can download a disk image and burn it to a DVD. Highly recommend you do it that way. The install is way more stable. I had tried doing the download on my laptop, and I ended up kind of junking the system.
Oh.
Yeah, I had gotten to a point where it said, like, I started installing, it ran into an error with like a video adapter or something, rolled back, but then it rolled back improperly, and it said, can't start your system, there's an error. So I went for like, I did this at work because I'm an idiot. And it was easy to fix the problem when I got home and got my Windows CD, and I could throw that in there and kind of just do an OS repair.
Right.
And that was fine, but I couldn't use my computer for the rest of the day that I was at work. So I highly recommend that you get the disk image. It makes it so much more stable to install. It's faster, it's easier. And then you have a Windows 10 disk. Should you ever need one, you have one. So highly recommend you do that. Also, if you decide you don't like it for any reason, I don't know why you wouldn't. It's pretty much Windows 7 with a different start menu and then a couple arrangement changes here and there. But ultimately, it does have Cortana, which I turned off because I actually do like voice controlled stuff. I don't like the provisions. There's a lot of Windows 10 stuff that's kind of privacy invasive. Like they want feedback, they want data. And one of the things they would get data from is any command I put into Cortana. If you use it, gets sent to Microsoft. And I'm like, I don't want them tracking my every question that I asked Cortana.
Right.
So I turned like all the tracking stuff off, which disables some things, but I wasn't using any of those in Windows 7 anyway. So what's the difference? So my start menu looks a little different. I'm already used to the slight difference. You get the kind of traditional start menu that you would have in 7, but you also get the tiled system of Windows 8 like next to it, which you can turn all that off if you don't want it. And if you don't like Windows 10 for any reason, you have 30 days to roll back. It saves your previous OS setup and keeps it on like a partition. So you can just jump back to it and delete Windows 10 if you decide you don't like it.
Right.
So it's not a risk to install. It's running really well. And yeah, I'm totally like already on board with it. And it's only been a month. So,
okay. Well, I mean, I'm at the point where like I need to upgrade.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's good to hear a good review, so I'll probably invest in that. But yeah, well, that's good to hear. I was a little concerned because like Windows 8 did get such a bad sort of reception. I've been to like a number of places, using computers that, I don't think I've seen Windows 8 on anything. Like,
no, not really. Like, mostly mobile stuff.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, definitely going to give that a shot because I think right now it's like $90 or something.
Yeah. My next Geek Out is a documentary that I actually kickstarted or helped kickstart, which is The Death of Superman Lives: What Happened. It actually, as most crowdfunding things do, came a couple years later than expected. That seems to be the norm, is whatever the estimated releases, you'll get it a year or two later than that. So just be prepared for those of you doing crowdfunding things. That's at least been my experience. But this was a documentary that was about that Superman movie that was supposed to star Nicolas Cage, directed by Tim Burton, that just never happened. So there have been so many like leaked pictures and reports and rumors, and Kevin Smith has told stories about it because he was involved, and other people have refuted and said other things. So there's been a lot of confusion, and ultimately it was really just about what the hell happened. Where did this movie come from? What was the intent? Why did it not happen? Why did it fall apart? John Schnepp is the guy who kind of put it all together, directed it, and it's very well done. Really enjoyed it. And it gave me a really nice insight into when you see a movie, especially based off of a licensed property, and you ask yourself, how did they fuck this thing up when they have all this stuff to pull from and they just go in a totally different direction? When you get people like John Peters, that's how it gets fucked up.
All right.
People that come in with ideas that clearly show they have no understanding of the character or the world or anything. And they're just like, I want this. I think this is a good idea. And I'm going to get my way because I'm the executive and I'm the one in charge of the money. So if you want to make this movie, these things need to be here. There's the story that Kevin Smith tells all the time, and John Peters kind of refused it, but at the same time, totally validated it. It's such a weird, like, he speaks in double talk and just it's so funny that he's a big part of this documentary. Like, if he's watching it back, does he realize how dumb he sounds? Like, how does this man have so many movies under his belt? I realize I'm probably cutting off a huge part of my potential Hollywood career in saying this, as if I ever had one to begin with, but wow, what a dummy. It's funny, like I was saying, Kevin Smith always tells this story about John Peters wanting a big spider in this Superman movie. He was like, yeah, I want a big spider. And they had it being like a Kryptonian trap beast or some like weird name. They're like, we'll just make it this thing and it'll look like a spider. So it'll have some rationale. The next movie that John Peters did after this was Wild Wild West. And we saw a big mechanical spider appear. And Kevin Smith goes, oh, dude got his spider. Like, people are that fixated on one thing that they want to see in a movie, and it doesn't matter what the movie is. They're just going to throw it in there. So it's so funny that there are people like that. And again, you ask yourself, how do these people make their way up the ladder when they're that dumb? They're like, I want to see a movie with a big spider. Are you kidding me? Like, I don't care where it ends up. I just want a big spider. Every time,
like, just now when you just mentioned that, like, it made me think of like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Because like Donald Trump would just be like, in this next movie, I want to see a spider. Spiders are huge.
Yeah.
Spiders are the best thing in movies now.
And that's what he sounds like. He says, and he talks like this in the documentary. He's like, spiders are one of nature's best predators. Like, they're a perfect enemy to have in a movie. We need a big spider. It's so funny. It's so funny. And he says it so definitively and like he's a genius. Like, he's got the inside track. Like, I know shit about spiders and I'm going to put one in a movie because they're so cool. Be like, you sound like a dummy. You sound like a child.
Yeah.
You're trying to sound smart. It's not working.
No.
And you're trying to put a big spider in a Superman movie.
Yeah.
So you see some of the choices that are made and how they were made, and you go, I understand every bad superhero movie I've ever seen, or every bad licensed movie I've ever seen. So from that point of view alone, I highly recommend watching this documentary.
Now, let me ask you this.
Yes.
As a sort of hypothetical question. If this movie had gone well, what do you think the trajectory of Nicolas Cage's career would have been?
Interesting. I'm trying to think of where he was at the time.
If I'm remembering this correctly, this came at right around the time, like it was like, what was it, early 2000s? Right?
Yeah.
So it was just after his coming off of like Rock, Con Air. And,
he was hot.
Yeah, he was a big action star. And that was kind of like the beginning of sort of superhero movies.
Sure.
And I mean, the Superman property at that point had not been so fully as well developed as it is now.
Right.
So like
it was prior to Superman Returns, but
right.
after the Christopher Reeve movies.
But and you think about it, at that time, Nicolas Cage didn't have the same cult following that he has now. Now he's celebrated for being just like this like actor that will take any role,
right?
He's just bad at everything, and it's almost to the point where it's just like that is his thing. But had he done well in this movie and had this movie been successful, what do you think the trajectory of his career would have been? Would he have been the same guy he is now?
From what I saw about that movie, I think he'd be on the same trajectory.
Really?
Like, I don't think it would have done him any good or necessarily any harm. Like, it's so weird.
Okay.
That people would have, I'm trying to think of another movie that was like this where it's called one thing, but it had very little to do with the source material.
So it was very much not a Superman movie?
It didn't feel like one. Like, they borrowed some things from the canon, but not enough of what makes Superman to really have it be the Superman we know. Like, they borrowed elements of the costume, and they had a version of the traditional costume in there that looked pretty good. Even though people always look at, there's this other one that's like a bubble neon, whatever. Yeah. That was just his regeneration pod suit.
Oh, okay.
Like, he wasn't going to be moving around in that. That's what everyone speculated, that was going to be his Superman costume. But in reality, he was going to be in a pod after he was killed, quote unquote, killed by Doomsday, and laying there and regenerating. That wasn't even to be used like for that much motion. So that was, and it looked really cool. Like, they talked about how they made it and everything. And it was pretty impressive, the suit itself. But one of the things, they were going like way back to old school Superman. Like, they're like, no flying. You can't relate to that. So he was going to jump like the Hulk.
Oh.
And the original version of Superman, that's what he did. He leapt over tall buildings in a single bound.
Right.
They were going to go back to that.
Okay.
So like little things like that, it's like, well, yeah, you can go back to that. Yeah, it was a part of the character, but we're moving forward. Like, you're just taking random things that Superman had and saying, oh, we'll use that. That was Superman.
Yeah, Superman is like the God mode superhero.
Like,
he has to be able to do all the things you expect him to do and not kind of revert to that original form. I mean, the only reason I ask is because you think about all the people nowadays who have benefited from doing well in like a superhero movie. Robert Downey Jr. kind of being like the case study.
Sure.
He was sort of like, I wouldn't say he was hot coming into Iron Man. I think he was just kind of coming off of his like Hollywood forgiveness tour of him being like in and out of rehab and sort of like Hollywood's bad boy. And then he pulls off this amazing performance and is now like, you know, one of the highest paid actors in Hollywood, most respected. Like,
yeah.
just, I mean, you see the trajectory of his career after Iron Man, and it's just like,
well, I think the
amazing.
big difference is that Iron Man was a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
This was going to be a train wreck.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't think it would have done him any favors. But overall, a very interesting documentary. Death of Superman Lives, What Happened. Check it out. Lastly, we talked about this a little bit last week. It was announced that Supergirl and The Flash will be having a crossover episode. I believe the episode is set to air in March. I think in like the 3rd or 4th week of March. Very cool that they're bringing these together, especially when for so long they were like, no way. Different networks. There's no way this is ever going to happen.
Yeah.
But now they're really making kind of a cohesive universe on the TV side. I don't know if bringing John Constantine was a catalyst to that because it was he was on NBC and then potentially Sci-Fi, which ended up not happening. But granted, his show was off the air when this happened, so it's easier to do that. But I'm pretty sure NBC would have still had the license for that character and would have had to allow him to show up there. But you can't leave money on the table.
Yeah.
Like, this is huge for both. This is the CW's top rated show. It probably doesn't get as good ratings as Supergirl just because Supergirl's on CBS. But getting Flash some exposure on CBS is pretty huge. And then Supergirl gets the benefit of having like the popularity from the Flash going over that, like that whole universe. There's a universe of people watching the stuff over there.
I mean, there's definitely skeptics on both sides that I think could benefit from seeing a crossover show.
Sure.
And can I just say the press photos that they did for this were fucking adorable.
They were. Absolutely.
It was like a Pottery Barn, Abercrombie and Fitch sort of like just like bright lights. And
although they
like,
weren't for this announcement necessarily.
Yeah.
Because he still has the red emblem on. This is for when Supergirl was first announced. This was like a feature on Berlanti.
Yeah. And so they're like together and they're all smiling, and I was just like, oh my god, it's just like fucking.
There's some where he's like in a running stance and she's got her arm up, and
it's like saccharine sweet, just like
they're super cute. It makes way more sense for the Flash to cross over than Arrow to cross over. That's a tough world to jam together.
Arrow crossing over to Supergirl is like Marilyn Manson showing up in a Manson video.
Yeah.
Or Hanson video, sorry.
My one fear, and it's kind of one of my issues with Supergirl right now, and it's not a new issue because I had some of these issues with Arrow as well. Just in the same vein that Arrow borrowed a lot of Batman's storylines because apparently he doesn't have his own source material, even though there's years of it. Supergirl, who maybe has even more source material than Green Arrow, has been borrowing too many Superman storylines. So they did the whole Bizarro thing recently. I believe it aired last week or is airing soon. There's a Superman storyline called For the Man Who Has Everything. They teased it at the end of the Bizarro episode when we saw Starro kind of show up as like this pod on. I don't think most people know what that is, but I was like, oh, it's freaking Starro. So there's a storyline for the Man Who Has Everything where she's gonna probably end up being on Krypton and reliving like almost a virtual reality world. This is a Superman storyline, but it's like, come on, like leave that stuff for other things. Like Supergirl is her own hero, and I think we were just saying before, like all this Superman stuff, we need Supergirl to be Supergirl and to be her own thing and not borrow all these things. And so my fear is that the crossover episode is going to be the stereotypical what happens when you see Superman and Flash together. They race to see who the fastest is. Granted, we all know the answer to that is the Flash. That's his frigging power. So if Superman were faster than him, then what the hell is the Flash for?
What's his point?
So if they do that, like they do the whole charity race and they race, I'll be a little disappointed because I want to see something new.
Well, I mean, I think I can definitely imagine like somebody giving notes on Supergirl and saying we need to tie in storylines from that are more familiar. Like if you talk about, like if you go to even like your average comic book reader and you say, who are you more familiar with, Superman or Supergirl? 99% of people are going to say Superman.
Of course.
And so maybe they want to tie in some of like the more familiar storylines first. I mean, this is the first season, right? So
it is.
Maybe they're still trying to build up the viewership, even among people who respect comic books and read comic books. So, you know, I can definitely see that being a note in, like the initial phases of development, saying that we need this to be more like Superman than Supergirl, at least for the time being.
Sure.
Time will only tell if that is the case. Yeah, I'm with you. I think that, Supergirl can be her own character, and you can develop superhero sort of, so like quote unquote tropes around Supergirl.
Right.
Because, she can be unique. She's not necessarily just a Superman clone.
Sure.
So, but I can definitely see them trying to develop a fan base first and then kind of going outside of that and seeing how it works, developing Supergirl as her own character.
Weird as it might sound, like it seems like they are aiming it at the comic book audience, but I don't think this is a show for the comic book audience.
Yeah.
Like it's more of a mainstream show, which is why I feel they don't need those storylines. Maybe those storylines are there to pull in the comic book audience. But we're there already. If it's a Supergirl show, we've already started watching. We don't need the familiar storylines. I don't think, like, it feels condescending to me to use those.
Yeah.
So I think they just need to treat it as original. And I don't know, like we're gonna be there. They can do original storylines for the mainstream, and that's
yeah. No,
I'm like I'm talking myself into a corner.
No, I see what you're saying. You're saying you want a Supergirl show for people who are fans of the genre. But that's where the difficulty lies in developing a show that on a major network like CBS. I don't know. Is it a tentpole show for that particular day of the week? I don't know, actually. I don't know what else is on.
Yeah, I don't know.
Time, but
I know nothing about actual like air times or anything because I don't watch like that anymore.
So, I don't know. Like maybe I honestly just think it's a strategic move to like develop a fan base. But, who knows?
If anything, that's the point of the Flash crossing over.
Yeah.
Is the comic book fans who maybe didn't give it that much of a try or saw it and were like, oh, it's not for me necessarily.
Yeah.
Maybe they're like, oh, Flash is coming. Okay, it's part of that universe. So now I'm a part of that show. Maybe. That's the end of our Geek Outs. Yeah. So let's jump into Freakouts.
Oh, freak out!
Go right ahead.
I'm fucking sick of politics. Holy crap.
Me too.
Like, the Republican debates, there've been like one a week. It's just all over social media. It's all people are talking about. Everyone from like your Joe Schmo who's just saying that Donald Trump is stupid to like the town criers, I like to call them.
Yeah.
The people on social media who are like, look at this thing about Bernie Sanders. He's the best fucking candidate. This Donald Trump, like it reveals so much about who your friends are.
Yeah, it's funny.
But it's just so fucking annoying. Like it's been going on for so long and the election isn't even for another year.
No.
Like, or not another year.
It all feels like white noise.
Yeah, it's just, there's so much of it. And like, there's only so much. Even SNL yesterday, or this past week, Bernie Sanders was on SNL with Larry David.
Jeez.
Because the speculation is that Larry David and Bernie Sanders are the same person, so to speak. But I think Bernie Sanders is doing a smart thing by appealing to the younger audience. But by appealing to that younger audience, he is also annoying the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Because like so many people, like my friends are like sharing things on social media or like sharing articles that are talking about the candidates. I'm just like over it. Like the Republican debates, it's just people yelling at each other. Donald Trump is just being a giant asshole, and like everybody else is just trying to compete. And it's like even some of like the low points are just like there's that one clip where Jeb Bush was doing a town hall style meeting.
Okay.
And he like just talking about his campaign and this is what he plans to do. No one claps. And he says, please clap. And then everybody just kind of like half-heartedly is like applauding him. And it's just like, it hurts so much to see something like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm so sick of politics. Like, fuck it, I'm just so.
I used to enjoy the parody.
Mm-hmm.
But now it feels like they're the same.
Yeah, there's so much of it. I don't blame like comedians and people who make videos and like improv troops for like using politics as like as fodder for their material, but it like after a while it just gets to the point where you're just like, I'm sick of it. Like
Totally agree.
I'm just waiting to just put somebody in office at this point and move to Canada because I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Like, and some people take it so seriously too, and they just get so offended when you don't take it seriously. And it just seems like a whole huge waste of time. Like people will say that about geek culture sometimes.
Mhm.
They'll say like, oh, your comic books and your cartoons and your movies are just a huge waste of time. Well, I think it's like the exact same thing for politics right now.
Mhm.
It's like it's so oversaturated and people are talking about it every day.
Geek culture affects my life more than politics does. I'll
Yeah.
tell you that right now.
Yeah, and like the politics end of it is just a huge waste of time.
I have never seen a giant shift in really anything in our country, regardless of who our president is. So
Yeah.
why do we all care about it so much?
I mean, I think there are giant shifts that do occur, but the nature of politics is that it changes incrementally.
Mhm.
So, I mean, for somebody in a seat like the presidency, like it's like moving an iceberg.
Yeah.
It takes time. It will eventually move, but that person needs 8 years,
Mhm.
2 terms, the maximum amount of time he's allowed in office
Yeah.
to make something
And then
happen.
someone might just push it back the other way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
So what's the point?
I mean, people who are similarly situated are probably not as affected as, other people are.
Mhm.
People on the extreme ends of the spectrum are the ones that feel the change.
Right,
because
right.
They're obviously, they're the ones that the policies most directly affect. But the people who are kind of towards the middle,
Mhm.
the people with presumably the louder voices and more of the opinions
Mhm.
are the ones who are kind of like, well, how does this affect me?
Exactly.
So, but I mean, yeah, politics on social media, enough. Like, I'm done. It's like seeing too many trailers for a superhero movie.
Yeah.
And just being like, I just want to see the fucking movie. I'm done
Yeah.
with this shit.
Yeah.
Like,
Let's
I'm
just
done.
make it happen.
My second geek out or freak out, is Destiny. I've talked about Destiny 100 times on this show.
Yeah.
Because it's the only game I play. And it's starting to not be the only game I play. Like, I used to keep up with the weekly resets. So like doing the raid and doing like things that you can only do once a week.
Okay.
I used to keep up with that weekly. Last couple of weeks I've just kind of fallen off, been like, I'm fucking done. It's so boring. They've tried to introduce new content since they dropped the last expansion,
Mhm.
but it's been so lackluster. Like there was the sort of Mario Kart racing thing the event that they had for like a couple of weeks.
Okay.
And it was so like inconsequential. It was the worst part of the game. The fucking traveling. It was the worst part of the game, and they built a giant event around it.
Oh no.
And they expected people to be like satisfied with that. And it's like, and now with Valentine's Day coming out, they have like a Valentine's Day event. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to be like World of Warcraft when they're not World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
World of Warcraft used to do that a lot, but they also had substantial backbone content that was driving players through the expansion.
Okay.
Like it wasn't like people were finishing like, okay, so in Destiny there's a raid called King's Fall. It's a big long event
Mhm.
or a big long instance where you team up with 5 other people and you fight bosses and you get loot. Presumably in an MMO, these raids are supposed to be difficult. They take a long period of time,
Mhm.
and oftentimes people don't get through it in like a week or 2. I got through the raid with a bunch of people that I didn't know, whose skill level I couldn't verify
Mhm.
in the first week.
Wow.
It was not hard at all. And so after that, it was just a process of repeating, getting gear, and getting to the point where I was satisfied with the character. At that point, I was just like, this game.
So there's a lot of grinding going on.
Yeah, it's just a lot of grinding, and it's not a lot of reward.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like over it. Like a couple weeks ago, I was just like, maybe I'll watch TV or something, or I've gone back to Diablo to like,
Oh, wow.
play a new character,
Yeah.
build up Crusader, and it's just like, it's over. I think. They had this whole like 10-year plan. That leaked last year, and it was just like, well, I think I'm out. Honestly, like unless you guys come up with like new content that will keep me attached to the game.
You have a 10-year plan. I'm not a part of it.
Yeah, if that 10-year plan doesn't come next week, I might not be here for
Right,
it, you know what
right.
I mean, like there's just, I mean, we've talked about it before. There's so much stuff out there to consume.
There is, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, you have to make your thing really appetizing for people to.
you have to be like specialized, and you also have to be like quick
Mhm.
with what you do. Otherwise, it's kind of like a spoiled kids mentality. Like, it has to be quick, it has to be good, and it has to be here now. Like that kind of thing. But I mean, you kind of have to do that in this market. And I mean, recently Destiny's CEO or Bungie's CEO stepped down.
Yeah, I saw that.
Their chief operating officer stepped up as the new CEO. I don't know if that's an indication of things to come. It just kind of feels like they've stopped investing money in Destiny and are moving on to other projects. Of course, when you consider that their overlord company is EA.
Yeah.
It's
they're cashing out.
Yeah, they're done. So kind of disappointed, but I guess I'm ready to move on.
Aww.
It's like we're breaking up. It's so weird, right? Oh my god, it's like I'm breaking up with my Destiny game. That's so fucking
we had a
weird.
10-year plan. I was looking forward to all the things we were gonna do together.
Oh,
it's not gonna happen now.
It's not like the Notebook. Why are you doing this to me?
Oh boy. All right. I am freaking out over a couple things. First of which, and I'm sure you've seen this too, I notice it a lot on Instagram. I notice it a lot on Twitter. Other celebrities trying to be George Takei. And it's basically, when I say that, they're not trying to get on a Star Trek series or anything. But George Takei was a genius about making his social media like an aggregate system and build a whole separate business and empire on how you run social media.
Yeah.
At least from what I've known, he's been like the most successful at it. And now other people are trying to do that. So I see people on Instagram, like the biggest of the people I follow, the one most guilty of it is Sarah Underwood, who shares like all this viral video content as if that's why I'm following her. Like, that's not why. People still below the comments will apparently is doing something, because they'll tag their friends and stuff. And especially when they're like, tag someone who does this. And I'm like, fuck you, I'm out. Or like when every post is an advertisement, or even if it's with them in it, they're holding a thing and but this is the thing you should be buying. It's like, come on. Yeah. I think it's funny too when people leave comments that are like, knock it off, or we're going elsewhere. Yeah. So, and I've seen it from multiple people. It becomes their Facebook or their whatever. And I have no problem with you having a huge audience and using it once in a while to do a product placement. But like when it's every damn day, that's too much.
Yeah. I too follow Sarah Underwood. And
I figured you would. So,
and I too don't necessarily care about the media content that she posts.
Yeah.
Unless it's a picture of her.
That's why I follow.
That's exactly why I follow. And I think she knows that. Yeah. But she's also trying to integrate other like, it's not even her own content. Like, I think, like, when it comes to Sarah Underwood specifically, you know, she posts stuff from like First Slice, which I think it's a YouTube channel for one. I know that. Okay. But it's like kind of like a media hub sort of site where you go for like interesting stories and like viral videos and things like that. Like I don't care.
No, me neither.
Like that stuff is,
like, I would follow that if I wanted to see that
and
stuff.
Like 4 out of 5 times, it's like 3 days after somebody else has already posted.
Yeah. And it reminds me of the whole controversy with and this is going to sound hateful, but the guy who calls himself the Fat Jew, like that whole Jew. Comedian thing. He names himself that. That's not me saying it. He had all the controversy of not tagging like the source and stuff. So why are people not knowing that and not doing the same? Yeah. Like, you should be tagging the things that you're getting it from, like,
source or something. Yeah.
And like, if she's going to do product placement, like, do one here and there, do a couple of product placements, no problem. But if you had like your own supplement company or something and you're doing stuff for that, it might still be annoying to do plugs all the time. But at the same time, like, you're building your own thing, and that's your thing. I'll support your thing, not necessarily the thing that you're being paid to support. But if I'm a fan of you and you made a thing, then I'm more likely to use that thing. Yeah. So I don't know. It's too much to me, though.
Yeah, I think I've seen like Kevin Hart does something similar too, like on his Facebook page. He does something similar to George Takei, but it's strange. Like, to me, George Takei, he has a following, but he kind of garnered he garnered more of a following through social media.
Mm-hmm.
People saw how clever he was and the stuff that he was posting, and like his advocacy for like LGBT rights and like his Broadway show and stuff. Like people like were drawn to that through the social media.
Sure.
People who are fans of Kevin Hart, like they're already a fan.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't a fan through his social media. They were a fan through his comedy.
Right.
So, but then on Kevin Hart's Facebook page, he's like posting all these like links that are arguably the most recent one is like 2 or 3 days old.
Yeah.
Like they're not fresh. They're not like, at the moment, but they're like, I mean, like, why are you doing it? This isn't garnering you any like further fan base. This is just kind of like, I don't know what you're doing.
I think that's the biggest separating factor. I think you nailed it, is that it depends on how those fans got to your social media in the first place. Like we all know what we're getting when we're following George Takei.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people going there for that because Star Trek was so many years ago that now he's a social media guy.
Yeah.
But if you're following someone else, you're a fan of that person, not necessarily what they do on social media. That's not why you're a fan of them.
Right.
You actually just want kind of the insight of your life. Like that's why you're following them. Like Sarah Underwood just announced that she created a personal account separate from her other account.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, well, I'm gonna hop over the personal account then.
Yeah.
She's like, there'll be less TNA over there and stuff. I'm like, well, I'm fine with that. Like I'm just a fan of the stuff. Maybe there'll not be advertisements over there.
Like I'm kind of like I know what you're talking about when like people use their Instagram account to like promote like a thing.
Yeah, and it's not subtle.
Like it's like, check out my skinny bunny tee. Look at it propped right between my tits.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'm sort of okay with that because I'm seeing what I am there to see.
Yep.
But at the same time, I am like, when you see it like four or five times in a row through your feed, be it whatever source it comes from,
mm-hmm.
like I am not gonna drink skinny bunny tea.
Yeah, exactly.
Take your fat burner weight loss supplement.
Yeah.
Or drink whatever that protein powder crap that you're trying to sell, like, or whiten my teeth, And I just learned this today as a side note. Skinny bunny tea is actually just like laxative tea. Like I didn't know that. Like I thought there was some sort of like fat burner or like the caffeine was like no, it just makes people poop. So like in the future,
of course you're gonna lose weight.
When you see like a hot girl drinking skinny bunny tea, know that she poops.
Yeah.
There was no
just
mistake.
imagine pooping. Yeah. My next one is sadly Into the Badlands.
Oh no.
Yeah. It's not because of the show itself. I love the show. It's a great show. But the first season was only 6 episodes. And I was like, what? That's it?
Yeah.
Really? Like, I'm sure it's probably a fairly expensive show to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I watch some stuff on BBC. Like I watched Doctor Who, and that's not 6 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
That's really short.
Yeah. Kind of shows you how much faith that the network had in the show to begin with.
Yeah.
But I mean, it did well from what I remember.
I hope we're getting more.
Yeah. I mean, I think Daniel Wu he said that there's going to be season 2 in social media somewhere.
I like the world that they set up. I like the characters. I'm invested. Like, and I didn't know it was going to be that short. That was the other problem.
Mm-hmm.
Had I known it was only 6 episodes, I would have gone in with that mentality.
Yeah.
But it feels like we did so little already. Like I'm still learning about people.
Yeah. And the way that they kind of ended this season too was like, I mean, they're definitely going places, and they've left it so that the world can be expanded readily. Like
sure.
We're going in different directions with all the main characters. Let's go. Let's do this, and let's bring it all around. It seems like there could be like a 5-season plan, going forward. But it's definitely a unique show. There's nothing like it on TV.
No, there really isn't. It's definitely a totally different thing.
But yeah, I agree. And 6 episodes is kind of short.
Very short. I was super bummed by that.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you're complaining that you just want more of something, if that's your worst complaint, I guess it's
things are not that bad.
They're not that bad. Yeah. My last geek out, I did it too. My last freak out is something that I've talked about before, and this is kind of a revisiting of this because it's almost getting worse. It's this little thing that I say about procedurals called The Character Actor Did It.
Mm-hmm.
And originally I was talking about Elementary. It's probably the only procedural I watch right now.
Mm-hmm.
And within the first 2 scenes of any episode, because we watch so many movies and TV shows and things like that, and we have a wide knowledge of these different characters. Within the first 2 scenes, I can say that's the guilty party.
Yeah.
Because that's the big actor or the person that I recognize from the other thing. Oddly enough, the one of the girls from Into the Badlands, the one who plays the widow's, I forget her character's name, the widow's daughter.
The main daughter.
Yeah. She was in it, and as a very cool character too. And she was the guilty party. Like, I recognized her right away, and it's every single episode, but it's getting worse because now I'm starting to recognize them in the intro credits. So I was watching an episode recently, and they had Noah Bean on from Nikita. And as soon as I saw Noah Bean, and I was like, oh, crap. Yeah. Like, I haven't even seen him on screen yet, and I know he's the guilty party. What the hell? It's not like it said guest starring, or maybe it did, but I don't remember. I normally don't look at intro credits for that reason. Like, I don't like knowing that a certain character is going to be in an episode that I wasn't expecting, because then the surprise is gone. And that happened in, like, Lost all the time. Like, a certain character would be coming back, and I was like, damn it. Like, I saw the intro credits. So I used to try to, like, hide the bottom of the screen. I feel like I'm going to have to start doing that with Elementary, because I'm seeing names now and I'm like, damn, like, the whole thing's ruined.
Yeah. I mean, I watch maybe more procedural TV than you do, just because it's like, it turns my brain off, you know, like at the end of the day. So it's very easy watching. I mean, it happens all the time in like Hawaii Five-0 and, you know, Blue Bloods. I sound like a 70-year-old man at this point. But, you know, it happens all the time. You know, you see the guy in the beginning of the show. That's the guy. Like, all you're waiting for is how he did it.
At first, I tried convincing myself it was either the person who was the murderer, or it was the victim, the eventual victim. And then I just was like, no, it's the murderer every time.
I'm pleasantly surprised though. Like, once in a while, there will be something that, you know, like like an episode of a show comes out, and like, it's the person that you think it's going to be, but no, it's like the lesser known, like, other character.
I wish they would do that more in Elementary.
Like, they do that on that. I think I mentioned it before. Major Crimes. Like, they do that once in a while. Yeah. Like, because it's a crime procedural show, and it's like a whodunit. So like, they have to sort of. There's all these clues that the show drops. And so, you know, sometimes they'll lead you in the direction of one guy when it's actually the other guy.
I want them to start using what I know against me.
Right.
And really, like, throwing curveballs and being like, oh, you thought it was this person because you recognize him, but it's not.
Yeah, average Joe thinks it's this guy, but when in fact it was his twin brother. And then you're like, fuck you.
Like, it's still the same actor.
Same fucking guy, you assholes.
Damn it. Yeah. But I mean, again, minor complaints. I still like the show, so whatever. All right. We are at about an hour right now, but there's a couple things I'd still like to do before we get out of here. I have a quick review that I want to do because I've been holding on to it for a while. I finally saw Fantastic Four. We brought it up a little bit last time we chatted, and I'll give you a few opinions on the movie, so hopefully you never have to watch it. I knew right away that it was gonna suck when and I'd gotten some knowledge about the movie prior to watching it, obviously because of what we do here, and you hear about things. So the original cut of the movie was 2 hours and 20 minutes long. The final cut is an hour and a half. Knew it was going to suck.
Right.
As they get into the most interesting part of the movie, where you'd normally see their reactions to like what they've become and how they learn to adapt and learn to use their powers. That's always like the super fun part of the origin story that happens in like any superhero movie. It cuts away and it says 1 year later.
Oh, no.
And it jumps past. So like they get back from their alternate dimension, like Johnny Storm's on the table like on fire and he can't control it, and like they're all freaking out, and Reed's like falling apart because he's getting all stretchy, and Ben's in like tortured because he's a rock person now and he can't cope with it. And then you get 1 year later. So I'm like, what?
There's no character development.
No, zero. Then you return to a group that's already experienced using their powers, and a government guy explaining what they can do. There's not one shot of Johnny being like, oh my God, I can fly. Like he can just fly, because that would have been way too much fun for this movie. Like Johnny being excited because he can fly, like, holy shit, I'm on fire all the time. But then, oh my God, I can fly.
Yeah.
Like you get the counterbalance.
Yeah.
Granted, he can turn off the fire and stuff. The Thing, who's normally part of the comic relief, is so damn depressing. He's just like, I'm a rock person and I don't like it. and like him and Johnny having that great relationship that we know. Forget about that. Remember that cool looking scene that was in every trailer where the Thing drops down from a plane and starts smashing tanks? Gone.
Really?
It's not in the movie. So there's a part where that's happening and it's on a monitor in the background as like the team's out on missions.
Why? That's like the cool part. That's like the money shot. The things you want to see.
Yeah. And it was in every damn trailer. Yeah. That whole sequence is missing from the movie. It's not there. And when I say it's on a monitor in the background, yeah, you like pan by it.
Oh no.
And you see it just in that like greenish like haze of a monitor. The final battle and pretty much the only action scene in the movie takes place during the last 15 minutes of the movie, and it's terrible.
Oh no. And presumably they're fighting
Doom, and it makes no sense, and Doom's powers make no sense. And you can see all the reshoots because Kate Mara has normal blondish hair through most of the movie, but in all the reshoots she has a platinum blonde wig on. That's
kind of messy.
Yeah,
like that's just sloppy. Like, why can't you match like hair color? Like that's.
It's so obvious. Like, not only is her hair a different color, but it's a different texture because it's a terrible wig.
What? A cosplayer can fucking fix that. Why can't a Hollywood? That doesn't make any sense to me.
None whatsoever.
That just shows that they didn't give a fuck.
They didn't. Not at all. So all the things that would have been interesting were in that 1 year later thing, because that's where they cut about 50 minutes of the movie, apparently.
Yeah.
And then garbage at the end.
That's terrible because that, like, even the original, but you know, like the 2000s Fast and Furious, the 2000s Fantastic Four movies.
Yeah.
They even showed some of that character development, like how they adapted to their powers.
Those were works of art compared to this.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
Yeah. This was really bad.
God.
And they managed to take, like we were saying before, 4 fantastic, no pun intended, actors and give them nothing to work with. I feel bad for every single person in that movie. Thank God Michael B. Jordan had Creed after that. I wish Miles Teller had Whiplash after instead of before, because I feel like you're only as good as the last thing you do sometimes. Yeah. And Miles Teller's coming off of that. Jamie Bell is great, although does he do mostly like voice stuff? I feel like I don't see him in enough things.
I don't think he's in any leading roles, but he's definitely in supporting.
Yeah,
things.
and Kate Mara is wonderful.
Yeah,
I adore her. So every single one of them, garbage, completely wasted. And again, at no fault of their own, they did everything they could with the material they were given.
Yeah,
and it is just junk.
That's terrible.
Yep.
Oh man,
that is possibly the most scathing review you'll ever hear on this show.
And funny enough, that's probably not the worst review of this movie.
No, probably not.
I mean, a lot of people, just bad reception across the board. I don't think it was positive at all. I think Rotten Tomatoes was like in the teens.
Yeah.
Like it was just not good. And that's a waste. I mean,
terrible waste of characters. Like, I'm not a huge Fantastic Four fan to begin with.
Yeah.
They're kind of on the duller side for me.
Right.
But the things that make them interesting, we're all missing.
Yeah. Every
single one.
That's terrible.
It's a shame. It's a big shame.
Maybe we should just stop making Fantastic Four movies. Says the guy who's never made a Fantastic Four movie.
Yes.
But I mean,
the royal we.
Maybe, just like we, as in the rest of the universe, should just stop making Fantastic Four movies.
Yeah.
Just let it revert back to Marvel. Just stop.
Just stop. That's the only advice we can give. Okay, that's the only review I have this week. We do have one more thing to do. I know it's probably been like, whatever. Helicopters flying overhead. Who cares, right? They're like,
here to get me.
They said, what about the Fantastic Four? So it's been a while since Force Awakens came out. I'm sure everybody's heard everything at this point and everything's been beaten to death. But there are a couple things that have been like living in my brain while we haven't been recording that I was like, they need to get out of here. So we need to do it. So we're going into spoiler territory. If you haven't seen The Force Awakens by now,
shame on you.
Like, this podcast is synonymous with what? So so if you haven't seen The Force Awakens yet, this is the end of the episode for you. Go away, come back later. Unless you just don't care, then you can listen. But we're hopping into the spoiler room because we have more things to say.
Access granted. Welcome.
So there are articles all over the place that have Easter eggs and references in The Force Awakens. Some we knew about kind of directly after, because we recorded the episode pretty quickly after we saw it. And it didn't give us enough time to even get all the Easter eggs. Like, I saw it 3 times and there were things that I still didn't pick up on until I read about them elsewhere. And then on one of the reviewings that I saw, I was like, oh, yeah, that thing and that thing and that thing. So it was cool. So I'm going to give you a few Easter eggs, maybe things that are kind of direct or just kind of references to other movies. For one, Maz Kanata's flags outside of her castle. You can see Boba Fett's Mandalorian flag there.
Yeah, I saw that
symbol. That's cool. And the flag of the 501st Legion.
Oh, really?
Which is the well-known kind of stormtrooper charity organization.
Right, yeah.
That is also on there, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. The Raptors chasing Han Solo. Remind you of anything?
I think I talked about it before, but to me, they just look like vaginas with teeth.
True. But there was something I noticed about it when I watched it the first time, and I kind of forgot to put a note in. It's a recreation of Indy running from the big boulder.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Even like the kind of shot they use is very similar.
Yeah.
And when they're coming down that hallway, I was like, oh my God. So that was cool. Liked that. On the Millennium Falcon, Finn can be seen quickly picking up and tossing aside the remote training ball that Luke used for lightsaber practice. He just kind of whoop to the side.
Yeah.
That's fun. There's a Resistance officer often seen near Princess Leia who seems to be wearing a version of Leia's old hair buns.
Oh, that's her daughter.
It is. The actress playing the role is Billie Lourd, Carrie Fisher's real-life daughter. Not Leia's daughter, but Carrie Fisher's daughter. Because then we'd be messing with canon so much. What's going on? In every Star Wars movie, and if you've listened to Random Movie Club, you hear us talk about this when we talk about Star Wars movies. In every Star Wars movie, someone utters the line, "I've got a bad feeling about this." Han says it here as he hears the rumble of the Raptors getting loose. So he said it in Empire Strikes Back as well, but also repeats it here. So those are the Easter eggs and references, but this all leads into the thing that I really want to talk about, which is maybe a month or so at this point. So again, this is probably beating a dead horse and it's gone around the internet so much. And I think it's all been resolved at this point, but I have my own thoughts because I just feel like I have to talk about it. At one point, Max Landis, who I've said I'm a huge fan of, I love his movies, he's a fantastic writer, but I'm more so a fan of just the way his brain works and his personality and his understanding of story and how to properly tell a story, because he's a writer and he's a good writer. He's a good storyteller, and he understands storytelling as an art form and a structure and a way to affect people's emotions. So he was not a huge fan of Force Awakens, but as he says in what we're going to listen to, that doesn't mean that anyone else shouldn't like it. He's not trying to convince you that it's not a good movie or that you shouldn't like it. That's just his opinion and you can take your own away. But he got in trouble on the internet a while ago for saying that Rey is a Mary Sue. And a Mary Sue, for people who don't know, and I believe in the clip, I might have edited out the part where he said to Google it, but a Mary Sue is generally a character in fan fiction where they kind of represent you being inserted into the material. And generally a Mary Sue is overpowered. They're able to do things that make the characters you're familiar with kind of look up to them or show them respect or whatever, because they have these like overachieving abilities.
Right.
So Mary Sue is generally good at everything, and they're some sort of avatar for the audience. And it could be argued that Rey is a Mary Sue in that sense. She has all these like super things that she's good at that make the other characters go, oh my God, like you're good at this thing and that I'm good at. We accept you. So, granted, this is not fan fiction, which you could say disqualifies her as being a Mary Sue right away. But at the same time, you could also say this is fan fiction. They're just making it into movies because George Lucas isn't doing it anymore and someone else is doing it. So, arguments aside, the ultimate argument is Rey overpowered? And is that bad for storytelling?
Mm-hmm.
So Max put out an explanation after he put those tweets out saying that Rey was a Mary Sue. He got attacked for being a sexist, which and I think a lot of that is just because Rey is a girl. But he put out like a 6-minute video explaining his point, and I edited it down a bit. I didn't take out any of the important stuff. I took out some coughs and maybe like him reiterating a point, but all the main things are here so that I didn't adjust his message in any way. So listen to this, and then we'll have a bit of a discussion about what he said.
A Mary Sue is a character who's too good at stuff, and Rey is a character who's too good at stuff. And it was really funny because I called her a Mary Sue online, and people were like, "You're sexist." And it was like, are you fucking kidding? She's never in danger. She's in danger once. Kylo goes like that, and she gets frozen, and he kidnaps her, and then she just easily overpowers him with the Force. Just keep in mind, this is a character who is raised on this planet, apparently alone. She's a great mechanic who can fix the Millennium Falcon in ways Han Solo can't. Han Solo immediately loves her. She can fly the Millennium Falcon despite apparently never having flown a ship like it before. She's an expert combatant. Keep in mind, Finn rushes to save her, and she just beats up those two guys easily, which is fine, which is like a cool moment. Except that's the whole movie. She beats up everyone who tries to fuck with her. And like you can say like, oh, it's a strong female character, but that's not what a strong female character is. A strong female character is not a character who's physically strong. Princess Leia is a strong female character. My hair's going crazy because I'm fucking passionate about this. Princess Leia, you can say all you want about her being put in a bikini, but the reason that works is because she's so fucking tough. And like in the first movie, I watched New Hope recently. I couldn't believe it. She just kicks ass with the threat of everyone on a planet dying. She still doesn't give up the Rebel Alliance. She's awesome. Strong means well drawn. And you can say that Rey has like some repressed memories in the past, but they don't matter. It's not real. It's not, I don't know what they are. So you can say, oh, it's part of a trilogy, but that's not the way movies work. That's the way TV shows work. This isn't like Lord of the Rings where there are 3 books. We have to take it on faith that these movies will explain everything, and that's not good enough. Rey is able to defeat an expert, or at least not an expert, but a well-trained by Luke Skywalker and Snoke Force user within seconds of getting a lightsaber. She's able to pull a lightsaber to her. That Luke took 2 movies to do that. And you can say Luke is a Mary Sue or Gary Sue, but he's not. Luke fucking sucks. That's why he's a great character. In the first movie, he can't do shit. He can't do shit. He gets saved by Obi-Wan Kenobi from the Tusken Raiders. Then he gets saved in the bar by Obi-Wan Kenobi again from those creepy guys. Then on the fucking Death Star, he gets saved by Han Solo, and then Princess Leia, and then R2-D2. You know what would have happened if it was Rey? She would have beaten the guys up in the bar. She would have beaten up the Tusken Raiders. And by the way, this keeps going. He gets saved by Han from the Wampa. Then he goes and he gets saved by Leia from falling to his death after fighting Darth Vader. Then, in the final movie, he fucks up Han's capture, or rescue, and he gets saved again by R2-D2. I mean, and then at the end of the movie, he fails. He wins by losing to be saved by his father. Spoilers for the film Return of the Jedi. Rey didn't have this because she didn't have stakes. Everything she did worked. That's not a cool character. That's John fucking Cena. And if you can't see that because it's I'm just like, ugh! If it's a woman or it's a new character so it's different, if you can't see that she didn't have stakes and never got hurt, I don't know what to tell you. You feel differently about it than me. It was just frustrating. A janitor was able to almost defeat a Force user in a lightsaber fight. Why did he even turn good? There's so much to say. But if you love the movie, you love the movie. This was just one thing that bothered me because someone said I was sexist, and it was like, you can't call these characters Finn because of their gender or race. It's not fair. It's not fair. You know, like Lando Calrissian in his tiny role in Empire has more depth and character and confusion than Finn in his entire lead role in Force Awakens. Finn starts out wanting to defect and stays there. Rey wants to stay on the planet, then she decides to leave, and she stays there. If you like The Force Awakens, good. I don't hate you for it, and I'm not trying to change your mind. But it's something to think about.
I find that very interesting.
I can see where the line is, and I know why. I can speculate as to why people got offended.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can be understanding of the people who were offended by his comments because, you know, for so long people were waiting for like a strong female character and for the Star Wars franchise to introduce one of their leads as a young female who is good at what she does. But
those are people that are looking solely at gender and not character.
Exactly.
Right.
Like they're not maybe not as well versed in storytelling as Max Landis is. I understand his arguments for developing a strong character. I understand his arguments as to why Luke is good because he sucks.
Yeah,
like, I understand that because
he has a huge arc.
I can recall that from the movies, and it kind of what makes him relatable is that, you know, he's this guy who is new to this thing called the Force, and he sucks at it for 2.5 movies.
Yeah.
And I get that because I've sucked at things that I've tried to do for extended periods of time.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's that adept. And I get it, but I also understand the perspective of people wanting to have a flawless image of a strong female character. Don't you dare criticize my strong female character because we have so few.
Right.
Like, you know, don't throw any shade at Rey just because you think that her character development is flawed. You know, people are putting Rey on a pedestal and not necessarily thinking about the broader issue of storytelling.
Sure.
I mean, you can literally break this down based on where people are. Max Landis is in Hollywood.
Yeah.
His business is writing, storytelling. The people or the persons who are offended by this are probably not in that industry.
Probably not.
They might have, you know, they probably have kids, most likely a daughter. And that is why they're offended by it, because they have people that they care for that look up to this character. And so they defend the character almost as if it's their own daughter or their own friend.
Sure. Like, why are you taking away my daughter's role model?
Right.
And at the same time, like, he's released subsequent things since, like, because that video got shit too. And he was like, I'm not taking away anything from anyone. If you love Rey, nothing I say is going to change that.
Yeah.
So love Rey. Go ahead. I'm just saying from a storytelling standpoint, this was maybe not the best choice to make.
Right.
And it touched on a few things in the movie that I had issues with, some of which I realized actively, and others were like, when you get that, I don't know exactly what's off with that, until somebody told me, someone a little smarter than me.
Right.
So like one of the things is we're so afraid of the damsel in distress trope at this point that we go too far in the other direction. And I saw a couple instances in the movie of that, one of which is the fact that Rey is overpowered. That is not something that I actively noticed watching this movie, but the two instances that did seem odd to me, and I think we talked about it during the initial spoiler room episode, is the Force mind trick scene. That is not good for many reasons. One, because it doesn't work
Yeah.
in the scene. And I completely agree with Max. And this is something that I also said coming out of it, is that I'm not taking on faith that they will explain this.
Yeah.
If they're not telling me now and they're not going to resolve it in this movie. And yes, I understand movies are evolving and changing too, and you're getting trilogies and we're supposed to know that there's more coming. But as a movie lover, I need movies to stand on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to wait till the next movie to be told why something in this movie worked. I don't want to wait till Batman v Superman to justify the destruction that Man of Steel did.
Right.
When that was horrible.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And then the other, and I think this really illustrates how afraid of the damsel in distress thing we are, when Finn and Rey are running on Jakku, and he keeps grabbing her hand, which is an action hero trope. Do that once and she pulls her hand away, fine. Do it again, and why do you keep grabbing my hand? Is shoving it down our throat.
Yeah.
As in, this girl is not a damsel in distress.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it once and get your point across and have it work way better than doing it multiple times.
Yeah.
So things like that. And again, people, like you said, you can see why people are upset by this. And Max said it as well. Because someone is a different gender or a different race does not make them immune to criticism. Mm-hmm. And because I'm a white male that says something about the way a character is written that has nothing to do with their gender or race, they do not get a free pass because they're not a white male. If this was Luke Skywalker, nobody would have said a thing. And I think that's ultimately his point. Like, there's two different things going on here. There's is Rey overpowered and not a well-written character? And are we overprotecting minorities?
Uh-huh. Well, I think the argument is more nuanced than simply saying, oh, you're criticizing my strong female lead.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're a sexist.
Right.
Like, the argument is more nuanced than that. It's not necessarily that he's criticizing her because she's a strong female lead. He's criticizing the storytelling aspect of having an overpowered character. I mean, just think about it like this. I mean, like, what if Goku could go Super Saiyan straight out the gate?
Right. What's the point then?
What is the point?
Right.
Like, I mean, anime suffers from that a lot, where, you know, you have a character who just continually gets better to address the storytelling problems. And that's, I mean, you know, that's problematic. Like, it's a reason why you stop watching.
Mm-hmm.
I understand, like, it's, so the thing that comes to mind when it comes to like the whole sexist brand is not the brand, but, you know, like the sort of scarlet letter of sexism is, especially when it comes to The Force Awakens, is how I think it was like a board game or something that didn't release a Rey. Didn't
include Rey. You're 100% correct. And that wasn't the only instance. There was tons of stuff that Rey should have been in and wasn't.
And in that particular instance, I think the reason why, I think it was Hasbro, they said the reason why they didn't release the Rey figurine was because of spoilers or something like that. They planned to release the Rey figurine later, but they just didn't release it when they dropped the game to start.
Right. And then people criticized them for including Darth Vader when Vader was not really a part of this movie. And they were like, well, this isn't just a Force Awakens game.
Right.
This is a Star Wars universe game.
Right. And so, I mean, and that kind of forced Hasbro's hand, and they subsequently
I side with the people who said that Rey should have been in the game. Yeah. She should have been in the game for sure. How did people not know she was the main character?
Right.
That's a bullshit argument.
But that's a example of a concrete instance where, you know, it doesn't necessarily affect, like, it's not an opinion whether or not Rey was a main character. She was a main character.
Yeah, the main character.
She should have been released with a product that was meant to promote or is part of the movie.
Right.
Or as part of the franchise. In this situation, Max Landis is making an opinion, or he's putting out an opinion about a character.
Yeah.
Just because that opinion is about, or it could impact a sensitive issue, is maybe like a micro trigger for some people.
Sure.
I mean, it's not necessarily that Max Landis is being sexist. He's just making an informed opinion about the character, an informed opinion that he's entitled to make because he's actually in that industry.
Right.
You know, it's like if somebody came to me and was like, like I need an attorney. I feel like I was discriminated against at work, and I feel like I can win my case. You're not in the industry. You're maybe not as informed as you need to be. Your opinion, while it does matter to me as your prospective attorney, is not necessarily the final argument.
Right.
It is one among many. Let me evaluate, where we go from here. Like, that was a bad example because now I'm lost in thought. But like what I'm saying is that, Max Landis is somebody who's in that industry. He's informed. He is, presumably a professional in that industry. Allow him to have an opinion, one among many, I'm sure.
Right.
And
do you think people are extra critical on him then? I don't know if this is maybe what you're like. I'm getting some of your argument, but not entirely all of it. Are you saying that because he's in Hollywood, people view his opinion more heavily than they would the average person? Like, because he's someone that can influence Hollywood characters, then maybe he should be building strong female characters, which I think he does. American Ultra certainly had one.
Yeah.
But
I think his opinion carries more weight because of his expertise in it. And so, maybe, the objection to his opinion can run the gamut from being a simple trigger that somebody just immediately thought was sexist to somebody who maybe does understand the nuanced nature of his argument, but nevertheless thinks that he, as a professional in that industry, should be advocating for something that is dearly lacking, namely strong female characters, regardless of the flaws in storytelling. I doubt it was that end of the spectrum. I'm more thinking that it was somebody on the less nuanced end of the spectrum who just thought it was a trigger.
Oh, I guarantee you the people that are calling him sexist are people who just see him criticizing a female character
without much of a rationale.
Yeah, with like none. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I think people have to think about it first and not just jump to conclusions and label it as sexist.
Yeah.
I don't think that it is I don't think this situation is an exception to the rule. I don't think you should take this as something that in the future is applicable to race or to gender in general. This is a nuanced argument that is a specific case of making the argument based on storytelling. Okay. So, if you ask me to pick a side, I would say that Max Landis is entitled to his opinion. Yeah. This is an opinion.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So
it's funny too. We're taking this in a whole different direction than I even initially proposed it for. Like my argument was whether or not Ray is overpowered initially. We're going into the whole sexism thing and I'm like,
you want to talk about that too? I thought, she was a little overpowered.
Yeah.
You can explain that later by saying, some people are speculating that she might have been one of Luke's students.
Right. Which is probably true.
And, that will make the case for her being overpowered. She's already developed to a certain degree.
And are you okay with that? Or do you feel like that needs to be, if it's represented in this movie, we need a little more than just, we might cover that later?
I'm okay with it as long as they explain it, because I think a lot of the speculation about Ray's parentage or about her history is attempting to explain the fact that she is so attuned to the Force.
Sure.
I've read so many theories about who Ray's parents are, and the one that I think explains her power level at the point of the Force Awakens is probably, it makes the most sense in my mind. It's that she is, what was it? She is Luke's she's Obi-Wan's granddaughter.
Oh.
So Obi-Wan,
interesting.
After between episode 3 and 4, kind of falls off the wagon of being a celibate Jedi.
Sure.
Has a relationship and has a daughter by way of some woman. And that person is attuned to the Force. That person later encounters Luke after he's become sort of, after he's developed his Jedi powers.
Right.
And they have a kid, and that's Rey. So Obi-Wan's granddaughter, Luke's daughter.
That's interesting.
melding the two sort of, strands of DNA that are powerful with the Force
Mhm.
kind of explains it a little bit. But also, I mean, like Kylo says it in the movie. He's like, "You need a teacher.
Right.
I can teach you."
Right,
Like,
right.
That's part of the Force. You're not just powerful from the drop.
hmm
Like, you learn that you have Force powers, and then you have to be taught. That's
Exactly.
kind of like the whole thing, the trope with like Star
Potential
Wars.
doesn't just develop itself.
Right. You need someone to help you develop that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, then it becomes an issue of, well, maybe she was a student
Yeah. Yeah.
in the school. Maybe somebody else taught her, not all the Jedi died.
Mhm.
Right. So, I don't know. The big problem that I had with Rey and trying to figure out her parentage as a explanation for her overpoweredness was that she's not like 30 years old, is she? She's like a young adult,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And wasn't there like 30 years between Return of the Jedi
Yeah.
and Force Awakens? So for her to be even Luke's child, she would have to be at least like,
Well, it depends when he had kids.
yeah.
Which we don't know.
Well, anyway, is she overpowered? Yes.
Yes.
But I think there are ways to explain that away. But
And they will. They probably will.
But like you said, like you want it to be covered in the moment, like
Yeah,
in the story
yeah.
that you're telling, not necessarily in the future.
Like A New Hope, which this borrows heavily from.
Mhm.
We've said that before. There was no hint at Vader being Luke's dad
Mm-hmm.
at all.
Yeah.
Until they brought it up later. So if they had given Rey, like, I don't know, I just really want to drop the Jedi mind trick scene. Like everything
Mhm.
else I was okay with,
Yeah.
but the Jedi mind trick scene, I was like, wait, what? Because that's a skill. That's a highly developed skill.
Now
You don't accidentally do that on
Yeah.
instinct, even if you were taught as a child.
right. That's a skill, like a high level Jedi
Yeah,
skill.
that's not like kid skill either.
The only people that we've seen do it are Obi-Wan,
Right.
basically, and Qui-Gon, if you count
And
that.
what in your brain made you go, oh, maybe this will work?
Mhm.
Like what prior knowledge
Yeah.
in your universe would suggest that was even a possibility?
Yeah. Now, do you think Rey can be redeemed by depowering her over the course of a movie?
I do.
So, like, say, like episode 8.
I don't even think they need to depower her. They need to give her a bigger challenge.
Okay.
It's the same idea with any character. Like, if this is our baseline, then we need to create a challenge comparable to that baseline, to where it is a challenge. And because I never like stepping backward.
Uh-huh.
I would rather they just move forward at this point and give her a challenge worthy of her needing further development.
Well, I mean, then in that case, you can justify Rey's power level by saying, well, she might be, very force sensitive,
Mm-hmm.
and her challenge will come later on when Kylo completes his training.
Sure,
to
sure.
speak, right? Or, I mean, she could ultimately be the one that fights Snoke,
Yeah.
or there could be something else. I mean, like Darth Maul is still out there apparently.
Yeah, right?
Like people were like after,
Robo legs.
Yeah, like after Force Awakens, they were talking about like Darth Maul in the animated universe and
Mhm.
how they could conceivably bring him back.
They could.
Like, I mean, he's still out there, and we don't know if there's other like First Order /
Right.
Inquisitor / Sith out there. So she could encounter challenges, but I mean, that I don't know if that addresses Max Landis's concern, because his concern is sort of in the moment.
Right. Which is also mine. I mean, I'm and just so people like know, I still love this movie.
Yeah.
Like we're going into geeky criticisms
Yeah.
because that's what we do. But ultimately, I love the movie because of the way it made me feel.
Mm-hmm.
You can forgive plot holes when a movie makes you feel a certain way.
Yeah.
I still think when I do eventually release my top 10 list of the movies of the year, pretty sure it's going to be on there.
Mm-hmm.
And I can definitively say that Rey catching the lightsaber, granted, maybe she shouldn't have had that ability yet, but still movie moment of the year for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was no moment in a movie that made me stand up and cheer metaphorically as much as that. I was like, fuck yeah, that was awesome.
Uh-huh.
So I love the movie. This is all this is all kind of me working out.
No, I think
verbally all the things that I'm thinking about it.
It's your love for the material that makes you want to talk about it.
Yeah, totally.
And we've already praised it endlessly. So, I mean, the next natural step is to say, well, what didn't you like about it?
Yeah.
And, you know, it's...
I think people were afraid to do that for a while.
Like, I mean, if you love something, you love it for everything that it is. And this movie is one of those things where you want to look at even its flaws and think, how can this be better? Or how can I somehow get my head around it so that it doesn't affect me later on? Because, you know, that can affect you later on if you're watching the next movie or something and like you don't like the way it's going because of that one thing in the last movie. So you're coping.
Yeah.
It's a way of coping.
Yeah.
Your love for something.
We're getting way deep in this.
I didn't mean to go like so far in the direction of like the argument that he's sexist. Like I thought, like, I mean, that's just an issue to address, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's just, to me, like if you have a cohesive argument, you shouldn't be making it in that case, because the argument on Max Landis' side is much more nuanced. And it's not about sex, it's about storytelling.
Exactly.
And he said it like 1,000 times in that one clip we just played. Like,
yeah.
Why aren't people listening?
It's shocking to me that some people just ignore the things that are said directly to them. Yeah.
I mean, like if somebody wants to like I'm failing to see it maybe, but you know, if there's an argument for him being sexist, that does involve the nuanced argument that he's making. It
was all based on the one Twitter thing of him calling her Mary Sue. That's
it's fucking Twitter, man.
Yeah.
Like,
I know. It's a dumb thing to call him sexist.
If everybody on Twitter was a professional, this world would be a fucking mess.
I know, right? That is for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like we should wrap this thing up. All right. Final thoughts or something you would like to plug?
You know, the usual. Go to thegeekgeneration.com, use the Amazon link, support us through Patreon. Continue to listen, you know, leave us a review on iTunes.
Hell yeah.
You know, let us know what you think.
We haven't gotten a review on iTunes in over a year.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, like if you're a new listener, you know, just take a minute, just say this podcast is great or this podcast sucks.
Yeah.
You know,
honest opinion.
Anything will help at this point. So, you know, just let us know what you think. And thank you so much for listening.
For everything else we do, head on over to thegeekgeneration.com. If you use iTunes, please rate the show and write a review. We always appreciate those. You can like us at facebook.com/thegeekgeneration and follow at Geek Generation on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at The Night Angel. Support the show by going to thegeekgeneration.com/support. You can send emails with your feedback to podcast@thegeekgeneration.com. And as always, the show theme is provided by Machine Supremacy. A link to their site can also be found on our site. We'll be back really soon with more geeky stuff for you. We will see you then. Later.
Make it so.